On the first day of organic chemistry, Professor Mitchell looked at my name on the attendance sheet and said, "Let's just call you Amy. Much easier. Trust me, you'll thank me when you're applying for jobs." When I won the department's chemistry award that my parents drove 3 hours to see, he announced it as Amy. Sorry, Adya, or however you say it. Then I discovered his real name was Dr. Richard Mitchell Sullivan Kowalski, and he'd been hiding it because it was too much of a mouthful for his career. My name is Adya. It means first or beginning in Sanskrit. Beautiful, right? Well, not to Professor Mitchell. First day of organic chemistry, he called attendance, stumbling dramatically when he reached my name. Admiral, you know what? Let's just call you Amy. Much easier. The class laughed. I corrected him politely. It's Adya. Adya. He waved his hand dismissively like he was swatting away a fly. Amy works better. Trust me, you'll thank me when you're applying for jobs. Every single class. Amy, what's the answer? Amy, come write this on the board. When I'd correct him, he'd make the same tired joke about how in America, we keep things simple, as if my name was some burden he had to bear 3 times a week. By week 3, he'd upgraded his routine. You know, I had a dog named something like that once. Audi? Audio? More laughs from the pre-meds who knew better than to risk their recommendation letters. He'd pretend to struggle dramatically whenever he saw my name on assignments, holding the paper at arm's length. These names are getting so complicated. Whatever happened to good old Sarah and Jennifer? I recorded everything on my phone. Every comment, every joke. Every time he'd lean against his desk and tell me I should consider a professional name for my future career because patients need names they can pronounce. The worst part? I was his best student. Perfect scores on every exam. Always prepared with insightful questions. Always first to volunteer for demonstrations. But during a lab review with visiting faculty from Harvard, he introduced me as Amy, one of our brightest, despite the communication barrier. I don't have a communication barrier. I was born in Chicago and graduated valedictorian. When I won the department's chemistry award that my parents had driven 3 hours to see me receive, he announced it as Amy. Sorry, Adya, or however you say it. My mother, who spent my childhood teaching me to be proud of my name, looked like she'd been slapped. My father's jaw clenched the way it does when he's trying not to say something he'll regret. That's when I decided I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. I started researching Professor Mitchell like he was my thesis project, spending hours in the library archives. Turns out his full name was Dr. Richard Mitchell Sullivan Kowalski. The man mocking my name was hiding behind Mitchell because Sullivan Kowalski was too much of a mouthful for his career, according to an old faculty newsletter. The hypocrisy was delicious. I dug deeper into his publications and conference presentations from decades ago, and then I found it. Gold. 3 of his early papers from 1998 had suspiciously similar data to another researcher's work. Graphs nearly identical except for minor label changes. Not quite plagiarism, but dancing on the line in a way that would have been overlooked in the 90s. The kind of thing that would absolutely destroy a career in 2024. Better yet, that researcher he'd borrowed from, Dr. Amit Patel. Mitchell had been very careful to never cite him properly, always burying the references or leaving them out entirely. I spent weeks crafting the perfect plan, meticulous as any lab experiment. Mitchell was up for a huge NSF grant, the kind that would fund his lab for the next decade and cement his legacy, the kind that required extensive review of past work. I created an anonymous Twitter account, started small with posts about citing international researchers properly and how science benefits from diverse perspectives, built a following. Then I posted about professors who Americanize names without consent, stripping students of their identities for convenience. It went mini viral in academic Twitter. The week before his grant review, I started phase 2. I posted, "Interesting how some data in Mitchell R. 1998 mirrors Patel A. 1997. See figures 3 and 4. Academic Twitter loves a good plagiarism hunt more than free conference coffee. Within hours, they were digging through archives, finding more similarities, making comparison charts. The hashtag #Mitchellgate started trending in our corner of the internet. But I wasn't done. Those visiting faculty he'd introduced me to, they were on the grant committee. I sent them an email from a new account. "Dear committee, I'm a concerned student who has noticed troubling patterns in Professor Mitchell's past, research, and current classroom behavior. While researching for my thesis, I discovered similarities between his work and Dr. Amit Patel's. More concerning is his pattern of dismissing non-Western names and contributions. Yesterday, he told our class that ethnic names don't belong in serious science. I've attached audio recordings and data comparisons. I trust you'll review this thoroughly before making funding decisions. Sincerely, a concerned student." The recordings were real. Every cruel joke from the semester. The quote, he'd said things close enough that it would sound believable. Today's the day. I'm sitting in Mitchell's class, watching him swagger in with his overpriced coffee, completely unaware that 3 major chemistry blogs have picked up the story overnight. That Mitchellgate is trending. That the grant committee has called an emergency meeting. He starts attendance, gets to my name. "Amy, it's Adya." I interrupt, louder than usual. He does his signature eye roll. Like I said, in America, his phone buzzes, then again and again. He glances at it, irritated. His face goes white. More buzzing, urgent, and insistent. He fumbles to silence it, but I can see Twitter notifications lighting up his screen. An email preview pops up. Urgent. Grant committee requests immediate meeting. Allegations. He looks up at the class, then at me. For the first time all semester, he says clearly, "Adya, can you come see me after class?" I shook my head slowly. "I have another class right after this one." He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. His voice cracked slightly. "Please, it's important." The entire class was watching now, phones out, probably already checking Twitter. Someone in the back row whispered something about Mitchell trending. His hands trembled as he set down his coffee cup, missing the desk edge. Brown liquid splashed across his lecture notes. He abandoned the attendance sheet entirely, turning to face the whiteboard. His usual confident strokes were replaced by shaky lines as he attempted to draw a benzene ring. It came out lopsided. He erased it, tried again. Worse. His phone continued its relentless buzzing from where he'd shoved it in his pocket. A student in the front row raised her hand. "Professor, are we reviewing for the midterm today?" Mitchell stared at her like she'd spoken in a foreign language. Then he seemed to remember where he was. "Yes, right, the midterm." He fumbled through his notes, dropping several pages. As he bent to retrieve them, his phone fell out. Screen up. Multiple missed calls from the department chair. Text reviews continues about emergency meetings and media inquiries. He straightened up, papers crumpled in his fist. His face had gone from white to an alarming shade of red. Actually, we're ending early today. Family emergency. Nobody moved. We all knew there was no family emergency. I said class is dismissed. His voice cracked on the last word. Students began gathering their things slowly, whispering, phones out. I stayed seated, taking my time packing my bag. Mitchell's eyes kept darting to me, then away, then back again. The classroom emptied until it was just us. He approached my desk cautiously, like I might bite. Adya. He pronounced it correctly. Perfectly. We need to talk. I stood, shouldering my bag. I really do have biochemistry in 10 minutes. This is about your future in this program. His voice had lost all its usual arrogance. About your allegations. I tilted my head. What allegations? His jaw clenched. Don't play games. I know it was you. The Twitter account. The email to the committee. I don't know what you're talking about. I moved toward the door. He stepped in front of me. Not threatening, just desperate. I've worked here for 23 years. Built my entire career. You can't destroy someone over a few jokes. Jokes? I kept my voice level. Like when you told the Harvard faculty I had a communication barrier? I was trying to help you. Make you more palatable. Like you made yourself more palatable when you dropped Sullivan Kowalski? He flinched like I'd slapped him. How did you? Public records are fascinating. I stepped around him. I really need to get to class. Wait. He grabbed my arm. Not hard, but enough to stop me. What do you want? An apology? I'll apologize. In front of the whole class. I looked down at his hand on my arm. He let go immediately, stepping back. I'll fix your grades, he continued, words tumbling out. Give you the recommendation letter of a lifetime. Whatever you need for med school. My grades are already perfect. I reached for the door handle. And I don't want to go to med school. I'm going into research, like Dr. Patel. His face went white again. You've been in contact with Patel? I smiled. Have a good day, Professor Mitchell. I left him standing there, his phone buzzing incessantly. In the hallway, clusters of students were huddled around phones, reading aloud from chemistry blogs. Someone had already updated Mitchell's Wikipedia page. My phone vibrated. Mom calling. I let it go to voicemail, knowing she'd probably seen something online. Dad would be calling next, then my sister. The family group chat would be exploding with questions and concerns. I ducked into the bathroom to avoid the crowds. My hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. In the mirror, I looked exactly the same as I had this morning, but everything had changed. I'd lit a fuse that couldn't be unlit. I wonder what Mitchell's really thinking as his whole world starts falling apart in real time. There's something strange about how quickly he goes from his usual mean jokes to complete panic when those notifications start coming in. Makes me curious if he already suspected someone might dig into his past work someday. My phone buzzed again. This time, an email from the department chair. Miss Patel, please come to my office immediately regarding urgent matters concerning Professor Mitchell's class. I stared at the email. She'd used the wrong last name. My last name was Sharma, not Patel. Even the department chair couldn't keep her Indian students straight. Another email popped up, this one from an unknown address. I know what you did. Be careful. A friend. My stomach dropped. Someone else knew. Someone who wasn't Mitchell. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to think. The plan had been perfect. Anonymous. Untraceable. I'd used VPNs, throwaway emails, public computers at the library, but someone had connected the dots. My phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Adya Sharma? A woman's voice. Professional and clipped. Yes? This is Dr. Patricia from the Office of Academic Integrity. We need to discuss some serious allegations that have been brought to our attention. Can you come to Administration Building, room 302, within the hour? My mouth went dry. Allegations against me? We'll discuss everything when you arrive. Please don't speak to anyone about this matter until we've met. She hung up before I could respond. I leaned against the bathroom wall, mind racing. This wasn't part of the plan. Academic Integrity investigated cheating, plagiarism, misconduct. What could they possibly have on me? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check your email. A friend. The same sign-off as before. I opened my email with trembling fingers. A new message with no subject line, just an attachment. A PDF of my anonymous Twitter account data. IP addresses circled in red. Timestamps matching the library computers I'd used. Security camera stills showing me at those computers at those exact times. Another text. Mitchell's not the only one who knows how to research. Delete everything and walk away, or this goes to the committee too. I stared at the evidence. Someone had been watching me, tracking me. Someone who cared enough about Mitchell to protect him, or someone who had their own agenda entirely. The bathroom door swung open. 3 girls from my organic chemistry class walked in, stopping mid-conversation when they saw me. Oh my god, Adya, one of them exclaimed. Did you see what's happening? Mitchell's whole career is imploding. Someone found out he stole research from some Indian professor years ago. I forced a neutral expression. Really? It's all over academic Twitter. They're calling for his resignation. The grant committee already announced they're suspending his application pending investigation. She leaned in conspiratorially. I heard he tried to blame a student for fabricating evidence. Can you imagine? My phone buzzed. Mom again. Then Dad. Then a text from my sister. What did you do? I have to go. I mumbled, pushing past them. The walk to the administration building felt like miles. Every student I passed seemed to be talking about Mitchell. Someone had started a petition calling for his removal. Another group was defending him, saying cancel culture had gone too far. My name hadn't surfaced yet, but it was only a matter of time. The Office of Academic Integrity was on the 3rd floor, tucked away from the main administrative offices. I'd never been there before, never had reason to. The waiting room was empty, except for a secretary who barely glanced up. Adya Sharma, I have an appointment with Dr. Chen. She nodded toward a door. She's waiting. Dr. Chen's office was smaller than I expected, cramped with filing cabinets and stacks of papers. She was younger than her voice suggested, maybe early 40s, with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Sit. She gestured to a chair across from her desk. Do you know why you're here? I shook my head, trying to project innocence. She opened a folder, spreading out papers, printouts of tweets, emailed timestamps, and there, on top, a photo of me at the library computer. We received an anonymous tip this morning, she said, along with quite comprehensive evidence of cyber harassment, defamation, and academic sabotage. I don't understand. She leaned back, studying me. You're an exceptional student, Ms. Sharma. Perfect grades, glowing recommendations from every professor, except one. I stayed silent. Professor Mitchell filed a a formal complaint an hour ago. He claims you've orchestrated a campaign to destroy his career over a personal vendetta. He has evidence. What kind of evidence? She tapped the papers. These, for starters. But more concerning is his claim that you fabricated the research similarities between his work and Dr. Patel's. He says you digitally altered documents to create the appearance of plagiarism where none existed. My stomach churned. That's not true. The similarities are real. Anyone can verify them. Perhaps. But Mitchell has produced original lab notebooks from 1998 that show independent research. He also has correspondence with Dr. Patel from that time period, showing they were aware of each other's work and had agreed to parallel publication. I stared at her. Those have to be fake. That's a serious accusation. So is claiming I fabricated evidence. She held up a hand. I'm not here to determine guilt or innocence today. I'm here to inform you that a formal investigation has been opened. You're suspended from Professor Mitchell's class pending the outcome. You're also prohibited from contacting him, posting about him online, or discussing this matter with other students. But the midterm is next week. Alternative arrangements will be made. She slid a paper across the desk. This is a formal notice of investigation. You have the right to respond in writing within 7 days. You may also request a hearing before the Academic Integrity Board. I read the notice, words blurring together. Academic sabotage, cyber harassment, potential consequences ranging from probation to expulsion. This is insane, I whispered. Dr. Chen's expression softened slightly. Ms. Sharma, I've seen many cases over the years. Students who felt wronged and took matters into their own hands. It rarely ends well. He mocked my name for months, made racist comments, humiliated me in front of visiting faculty. Did you file a formal complaint? I shook my head. Did you speak to the department chair, the diversity office, anyone in administration? Number, then you have no documented evidence of harassment. Meanwhile, Professor Mitchell has extensive documentation of what he claims is your campaign against him. She leaned forward. My advice? Get a lawyer. Document everything from this point forward. And whatever you do, don't make this worse. I left her office in a daze. The hallway was crowded now. Students moving between classes. Normal university life continuing while mine imploded. My phone had dozens of messages. I ignored them all, heading for the one place I could think clearly, the chemistry library. It was quiet there. Mostly graduate students hunched over research papers. I found a corner table and tried to process what had just happened. Mitchell had flipped the script, turned predator into prey. But how had he gotten those lab notebooks? The correspondence with Patel? And who was my friend who'd been tracking me? I pulled out my laptop and hesitated. Everything I did online could be monitored now, used against me. But I needed information. I searched for Dr. Amit Patel, finding his faculty page at a university in California. His research interests aligned with Mitchell's early work. But when I tried to access his publications from 1997, they were behind paywalls or missing entirely. Adya? I looked up to find Benji Smalls, a graduate student who TA'd for one of my labs. He was carrying a stack of journals, looking concerned. Hey, I managed. He sat down uninvited. I heard about Mitchell's class being canceled. Everyone's talking about what's happening to him. He paused. Are you okay? You look, I'm fine. He studied me. You know, I was Mitchell's TA 3 years ago, before I switched advisors. Something in his tone made me look up. Why did you switch? He glanced around, then leaned closer. Let's just say Mitchell has a history of issues with students who don't fit his idea of what a chemist should look like. What kind of issues? The kind that get buried when students don't want to risk their careers. He pulled out one of the journals, flipping to a marked page. I've been researching Mitchell's early work for my dissertation, found some interesting discrepancies. He showed me a paper. Mitchell's name was listed as first author, but the methodology section mentioned techniques that weren't standard in American labs at the time. Techniques that were, however, common in South Asian research institutions. I think your Twitter friend might have been onto something, Benji said quietly, but proving academic misconduct from 25 years ago? Nearly impossible, especially when the accused has tenure and grant money. What if he's still doing it? Benji's eyes widened. What do you mean? I thought about the graduate students in Mitchell's lab, how they always seemed overworked and underappreciated, how their names appeared in acknowledgments, but rarely as co-authors. Nothing, I said quickly, just thinking out loud. He nodded slowly. Be careful, Adya. Mitchell's been here a long time. He has friends in high places, and when cornered, he can be dangerous. I was going to say creative. He stood up. If you need anything, my office is in the graduate suite, 3rd floor. After he left, I sat there thinking, Mitchell had played this game longer than I'd been alive. He knew how to protect himself, how to turn accusations around, but he'd also made enemies over the years. Students like Benji who'd been burned, faculty who'd been overlooked, staff who'd been dismissed. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. How did Mitchell get those old lab notebooks from 1998 so fast? That's really strange that he just happened to have proof ready to go. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Ms. Sharma? An older male voice, slightly accented. This is Dr. Amit Patel. I believe we need to talk about Richard Mitchell. I gripped the phone tighter, my pulse racing. Dr. Patel's timing couldn't be coincidence. How did you get my number? I asked. He chuckled softly. Academic circles are smaller than you think, Ms. Sharma. I've been following the situation with Richard since this morning. A colleague forwarded me the Twitter thread. I moved to a more secluded corner of the library, keeping my voice low. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course not, he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. But hypothetically, if someone were to expose Richard's borrowing of my work, I would want them to know they have my full support. My heart hammered. Hypothetically. I've kept copies of everything from 1997. Original data, lab notebooks, even correspondence where Richard asked very specific questions about my methodology. I never pursued it back then. Young professor, new to America, didn't want to make waves. He paused. But I'm not young anymore, and I'm tired of men like Richard succeeding on the backs of others. Why are you telling me this? Because I received a call an hour ago from Richard himself, first time in 20 years. He wanted to know if I still had my old research materials, said there had been a misunderstanding about our work, and he needed my help clearing it up. My stomach sank. Mitchell was trying to cover his tracks. What did you tell him? That I'd check my storage unit and get back to him. But Ms. Sharma, I think you should know he sounded desperate, and desperate men do dangerous things. After we hung up, I sat there processing. Mitchell was scrambling, trying to rewrite history, but now I had an ally, someone with actual evidence. The question was how to use it when I was under investigation myself. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Come home. Now. The drive to my parents' house took 40 minutes, each mile heavy with dread. I found them in the kitchen, Dad pacing while Mom sat at the table with her laptop open. Sit, Mom commanded, her voice sharp with worry. I sank into a chair as she turned the laptop toward me. My stomach dropped. There on the screen was a blog post, The Dangers of False Accusations in Academia, a case study. The author was anonymous, but I recognized Mitchell's writing style immediately. The post detailed how a vindictive student had launched a coordinated attack against a respected professor using fabricated evidence and cyber terrorism. While no names were mentioned, anyone following academic Twitter would connect dots. Is this about you? Dad's voice was quiet, controlled. I nodded, unable to speak. Did you do what he's claiming? Mom asked. I exposed his hypocrisy, his plagiarism. All of it was true. Dad stopped pacing. But did you do it anonymously? Online? Yes. Mom closed her eyes. Adya, Beta, what were you thinking? He mocked my name, our name, made me feel small for being proud of my heritage. The words burst out. And he stole from Dr. Patel, another Indian researcher, built his whole career on it. And now he's building a case against you, Dad said. This blog post, it's laying groundwork, making you the villain before your name even comes out. Mom pulled up another tab. Look at the comments. Other professors defending him, calling for the student to be expelled. I scanned the comments, my heart sinking. Mitchell had mobilized his network, colleagues from conferences, former students now in positions of power, all rallying to his defense. There's more, Mom said quietly. She showed me Mitchell's faculty page. A new statement had been posted. Due to recent harassment and false allegations, I will be taking a medical leave of absence. I have full confidence that the truth will prevail. Medical leave. He was playing the victim perfectly. You need to tell us everything, Dad said. Every detail. We're going to need a lawyer. I spent the next hour walking them through everything. The recordings, the research, the Twitter account, the emails. Mom took notes while Dad asked pointed questions. When I finished, they exchanged a look I'd seen before, the one they used when making big decisions. The chemistry department head called the house. Mom said finally, left a message. Says you missed a mandatory meeting. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from the department, 2 from Dr. Chen, and a dozen texts from classmates. The news was spreading. I should go back, I said. Dad's voice was firm. Not until we have legal representation. Mitchell's playing a long game and you're walking into traps. That night, I lay in my childhood bed staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications I was afraid to check. The academic Twitter mob had turned, debating whether cancel culture had gone too far. Someone had started a GoFundMe for Mitchell's legal defense against defamation. The next morning, I woke to find Dad already on the phone with lawyers. Mom had compiled a folder of everything. My transcripts, awards, recommendation letters from other professors, evidence of my character. The lawyer wants to see you this afternoon, Dad said. She specializes in academic disputes. The law office was downtown, all glass and modern furniture. Natasha Patel, no relation to Dr. Patel, she clarified, was younger than I expected, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Academic misconduct investigations are tricky, she explained after reviewing everything. The burden of proof is lower than criminal court, and Mitchell's preemptive strike was smart. But I have evidence, recordings of his comments, the research similarities, which he's already countered with claims of fabrication. He's tenured, established, connected. You're a student who went outside proper channels. She leaned forward. I'm not saying we can't win, but it won't be easy. She outlined a strategy. First, respond to the investigation notice with a detailed account of Mitchell's harassment. Second, file a formal discrimination complaint with the university. Third, reach out to Dr. Amit Patel for supporting documentation. And delete nothing, she emphasized. They'll use any destruction of evidence against you. I left feeling slightly more hopeful. At least I had a plan. Back on campus the next day, the atmosphere was suffocating. Conversations stopped when I walked by. In my other classes, professors seemed wary, distant. The story had evolved in the telling. Now I was the student who'd tried to destroy a professor over a grade dispute. Outside the chemistry building, I ran into Benji. He pulled me aside, glancing around nervously. Mitchell's back, he whispered. Not officially, but he's been in his office, meeting with graduate students. What about his medical leave? Apparently miraculous recovery. He's been calling in favors, getting statements from former students about what a great mentor he is. Benji shifted uncomfortably. He asked about you, whether we'd talked. My blood ran cold. What did you tell him? Nothing. But Adya, 2 other grad students came to me yesterday. International students who had experiences with Mitchell. They want to help, but they're scared. Their visas. I understand, I said, though my heart sank. Mitchell knew exactly which students he could target without consequence. That afternoon, I submitted my response to the Academic Integrity Office. 7 pages detailing every incident, with timestamps from my recordings and witness names where possible. Natasha had helped craft it, making sure to emphasize the pattern of discrimination. The response was swift. An email from Dr. Chen. Your hearing is scheduled for next Friday. You may bring 1 support person. Professor Mitchell will present his case first. A week to prepare. A week of Mitchell solidifying his narrative. That evening, I found a note slipped under my apartment door. No envelope, just a folded paper. Drop this, or things get worse. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I photographed it and sent it to Natasha immediately. Her response was quick. Save the original. This is witness intimidation. But who was the witness? Mitchell himself? One of his allies? The next day brought a new development. The department announced that due to the ongoing situation, they were bringing in an external professor to take over Mitchell's organic chemistry class. The midterm would proceed as scheduled. I attended the first class with the new professor, Dr. Simpson. She was professional but cold, clearly unhappy about the circumstances. The other students kept their distance from me, afraid of guilt by association. After class, a student I barely knew approached me. Hey, you're Adya, right? I nodded warily. I'm in Mitchell's Thursday section, or was. She glanced around nervously. He did the same thing to my friend last year. The name thing. Made her go by an American nickname. She complained to the department. What happened? Nothing official, but her grade mysteriously dropped from an A to a C+. She couldn't get into any graduate programs. She pressed a paper into my hand. Her contact info, if it helps. More stories emerged over the following days. Whispered conversations in hallways, anonymous emails to my university account, a pattern spanning years, international students, particularly particularly Asian students, who'd been belittled, mocked, had their names butchered, and their concerns dismissed. But none would go on record. Too much to lose. Dr. Amit Patel called again. "I've sent copies of my original research to your lawyer," he said. And Richard called again, this time offering to collaborate on a paper. After 25 years of silence. "He's trying to buy your silence. Obviously. I told him I was too busy." He paused. "Be careful, Ms. Sharma." Mitchell calling Dr. Patel after 25 years of silence? That timing makes me really curious about what's going through his mind right now. He's clearly trying to control the story, but offering to collaborate on a paper seems like such a strange move when he's supposedly on medical leave. I've been asking around about Richard. He has a history of making problems disappear. The threat felt more real with each passing day. My apartment building's security camera mysteriously malfunctioned. My car tires were deflated twice. Small things, hard to prove, but the message was clear. Mom insisted I move back home for safety. Dad installed new locks and cameras. My sister flew in from Seattle, ready to fight anyone who threatened her little sister. "This is insane," she said, reviewing everything. "One Rex professor shouldn't have this much power, but he did, and he was using it." 2 days before the hearing, Natasha called with bad news. Mitchell submitted his evidence, 60 pages including affidavits from colleagues, a technical analysis claiming the research similarities are coincidental, and a psychological evaluation suggesting he's suffering from severe stress due to harassment. Psychological evaluation? He's painting himself as the victim of a targeted campaign, claims he's been receiving death threats, though he can't produce them, says his reputation has been destroyed by false allegations. I laughed bitterly. While he's actively destroying mine, there's something else. He submitted evidence that you accessed his publications through the library system multiple times. He's claiming it shows premeditation. Of course I'd accessed his publications. I was his student. But in Mitchell's narrative, everything became sinister. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I reviewed my evidence, practiced my statement, tried to prepare for every possible question. Mom made tea while Dad paced, both of them as anxious as I was. "Whatever happens," Mom said, "we're proud of you for standing up for yourself. Even if I lose everything, you won't lose everything," Dad said firmly. "You'll still be Adya, still brilliant, still our daughter." The morning of the hearing, I dressed carefully. Professional, but not trying too hard. Natasha met me outside the administration building. "Remember," she said, "stick to facts. Don't let them rattle you. And whatever Mitchell says, don't react emotionally." The hearing room was smaller than I expected. A long table with 5 academic integrity board members, smaller tables for Mitchell and me facing them, no jury of peers, just faculty who'd known Mitchell for years. He was already there, looking haggard but righteous. His lawyer, an older man in an expensive suit, whispered in his ear. Mitchell's eyes met mine briefly, and I saw something cold there, a promise that this wasn't over. Dr. Chen called the hearing to order. "We're here to investigate allegations of academic misconduct against Ms. Adya Sharma. Professor Mitchell, as the complainant, you'll present first." Mitchell stood, shoulders back, every inch the wronged professor. He began his presentation with a PowerPoint, because of course he did. 23 years, he began. "That's how long I've served this institution. 23 years of dedicated teaching, groundbreaking research, and mentoring countless students. Until this semester, when one student decided to destroy it all." He clicked through slides showing his teaching awards, student evaluations, research grants, building his credibility before the attack. "Ms. Sharma was upset about a perceived slight," he continued. "I occasionally shortened her name for efficiency, as I do with many students. Christopher becomes Chris, Jennifer becomes Jen, a common practice." I gripped my pen tighter. He was rewriting history in real time. Rather than speak to me directly, she launched a coordinated cyber attack, created anonymous accounts to spread lies about my research, contacted colleagues with false allegations, attempted to destroy my career over a nickname. He showed screenshots of the Twitter posts, emails to the grant committee, even Reddit discussions about number Mitchell Gate. His technical expert testified that the research similarities were statistically insignificant, and that image manipulation software could have been used to create false comparisons. Then came the character witnesses, colleagues testifying to Mitchell's integrity, former students praising his mentorship, each one painting him as the victim of a vindictive student. "I've had to seek counseling," Mitchell said, voice cracking perfectly. "The stress has affected my health, my family. My wife barely sleeps. My children see their father's name dragged through the mud online." He finished with a plea for justice, for the board to send a message that cyber harassment wouldn't be tolerated, that students couldn't destroy professors' lives over petty grievances. When he sat down, I felt the weight of the room's sympathy shift toward him. He'd played it perfectly. "Ms. Sharma," Dr. Chen said, "you may now respond." I stood on shaky legs, Natasha's hand briefly touching my arm in support. This was my moment, my chance to tell the truth. But as I looked at the board members, I saw skepticism already etched on their faces. Mitchell had gotten there first, painted the narrative. I was fighting uphill. I began with my name. "Adya means first or beginning in Sanskrit," I said. "My parents chose it carefully, wanting me to be proud of my heritage while pursuing my dreams in America. Professor Mitchell took that from me the first day of class." I played the first recording. Mitchell's voice filled the room. "Let's just call you Amy. Much easier. This wasn't about efficiency," I continued. "Christopher stayed Christopher. Jennifer stayed Jennifer. Only the non-Western names got simplified." I played more recordings. The dog comparison, the communication barrier comment, the suggestion that patients wouldn't trust doctors with ethnic names. With each one, I watched board members shift uncomfortably. "I tried to address this privately," I said, "but Professor Mitchell made it clear that questioning him would have consequences. So yes, I researched his background, and what I found was troubling." I presented Dr. Amit Patel's evidence, the original research from 1997, the striking similarities to Mitchell's 1998 papers, Dr. Patel's statement that he'd never agreed to parallel publication. "This isn't about a nickname," I said. "It's about a pattern of taking what isn't his, of diminishing those he sees as lesser, of building a career on the backs of others while denying them recognition." Mitchell's lawyer objected repeatedly, but I pressed on. I showed the blog post Mitchell had written, the campaign to discredit me before I was even named, the intimidation tactics, the sudden return from medical leave to shore up support. "Professor Mitchell wants you to believe I'm a vindictive student who couldn't handle criticism," I concluded, "but I'm actually his best student." perfect grades, which he never disputed, until I stood up for my name, for my identity, for the truth about his past. When I finished, the room was silent. Board members reviewed documents, whispered among themselves. Finally, Dr. Chen spoke. We'll need time to deliberate. Both parties will be notified of our decision within 5 business days. This hearing is adjourned. As we filed out, Mitchell brushed past me. You have no idea what you've done, he whispered. This isn't over. Natasha heard him. That sounded like a threat, Professor. Should we add witness intimidation to the complaint? He walked away without answering. Outside, I felt drained. Mom and Dad were waiting, faces anxious. How did it go? Mom asked. I don't know, I admitted. Mitchell was convincing. You told the truth, Dad said. That matters. But we all knew sometimes the truth wasn't enough. Not when power and reputation were at stake. The weekend passed in a blur. I tried to focus on my other classes, but concentration was impossible. Every email notification made my heart race, wondering if it was the board's decision. Benji texted on Sunday. Mitchell's in his office. Heard him on the phone saying, the girl doesn't know when to quit. Watch yourself. Monday morning brought an unexpected ally. Dr. Simpson, the replacement professor, asked to see me after class. I've been reviewing Mitchell's grade distributions, she said quietly. There's a pattern. Students with non-Western names consistently score lower on subjective assignments. The difference is statistically significant. My heart leaped. Would you testify to that? She hesitated. I'm untenured, but I've documented everything, if you need it. Another crack in Mitchell's armor. But would it be enough? Tuesday, Dr. Amit Patel called with news. Richard's been reaching out to everyone from our graduate cohort, trying to get them to sign statements about our collaborative relationship. Most are refusing, but some are considering it. He's offering co-authorships, recommendations, connections. He's buying silence, attempting to. But Adya, I've been contacted by a journal editor. They're considering retracting Mitchell's 1998 papers pending investigation. The similarities are too significant to ignore. A major victory, but it also meant Mitchell would be more desperate, more dangerous. Wednesday night, as I studied in my room, Dad knocked. There's someone here to see you. I found a woman in our living room, mid-40s, professionally dressed but nervous. She introduced herself as Dr. Sarah Kim. I was Mitchell's graduate student 15 years ago, she said. I heard about your case through academic networks. Why are you here? She took a deep breath. Because what he did to you, he did to me. Except I didn't fight back. I let him anglicize my Korean name, let him take credit for my research, let him diminish me until I believed I was less than. She pulled out a folder. My original lab notebooks, showing work that appeared in Mitchell's publications with minimal acknowledgement. I've carried these for 15 years, too afraid to use them. Why now? Because you're braver than I was. Mitchell's whole story keeps changing. First, Amy was just easier to say. Now he's claiming he shortens everyone's names. That's such a strange switch in his explanation. Plus those colleagues defending him. And because I'm tired of men like Mitchell succeeding while we disappear, I stared at the notebooks, seeing my story reflected in her meticulous notes. Another piece of evidence. Another crack in Mitchell's facade. Thursday brought radio silence. No word from the board. No updates from Natasha. The waiting was excruciating. That evening, I was reviewing Dr. Kim's notebooks when my phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Sharma, a young male voice, nervous. I'm calling from the Academic Integrity Office. I shouldn't be doing this, but Professor Mitchell was here today, meeting privately with board members. That's not supposed to happen. Who is this? I can't. Just be prepared. The decision tomorrow might not be what you expect. He hung up before I could ask more. I called Natasha immediately. She was furious. Ex parte communication is strictly forbidden. If we can prove it, but we can't. Anonymous tip from someone too scared to go on record. This whole system is rigged, she said, but we're not giving up. I spent that night preparing for the worst. If they ruled against me, I'd face suspension, possible expulsion. My academic career would be over before it began. All for standing up to a man who'd stolen my name and others' work. Mom found me at 3 a.m., still awake, staring at my laptop. Beta, you need sleep. I can't. Tomorrow they decide my future. She sat beside me. Number tomorrow they make a decision. But your future? That's yours to decide. Always. Friday morning came too quickly. The email arrived at 9 a.m. sharp. The Academic Integrity Board has reached a decision. Please report to Administration Building, room 302, at 2 p.m. 5 hours to wait. 5 hours of agony. I dressed carefully again, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. Natasha met me outside, her face grim. Whatever happens, we have options, she said. Appeals, civil suits, media, if necessary. The hearing room was packed this time. Mitchell was there with his lawyer, looking smugly confident. The board members filed in, faces unreadable. Dr. Chen stood. After careful deliberation, the Academic Integrity Board has reached a decision regarding the allegations against Ms. Adya Sharma. I held my breath. While we find that Ms. Sharma did create anonymous accounts and post about Professor Mitchell online, we also find significant evidence supporting her claims of harassment and discrimination. Mitchell's smile faltered. Furthermore, Dr. Chen continued, new evidence has come to light regarding potential research misconduct in Professor Mitchell's early publications. This matter has been referred to the Research Integrity Committee for separate investigation. She looked directly at me. Ms. Sharma, the board finds you guilty of violating university policy regarding anonymous harassment. However, given the substantial provocation and Professor Mitchell's own conduct, we're issuing only a formal warning. No suspension, no mark on your permanent record. Relief flooded through me, but Dr. Chen wasn't finished. Professor Mitchell, while not the subject of this hearing, the board strongly recommends you undergo diversity training and review university policies on respectful treatment of students. Mitchell shot to his feet. This is outrageous. She admitted to cyber harassment. She tried to destroy my career. Professor Mitchell, Dr. Chen's voice was ice. You're out of order. The decision is final. As we filed out, Mitchell cornered me in the hallway, his lawyer trying to pull him back. You think you've won? He snarled. A warning? I'll make sure every graduate program knows what kind of student you are. Every recommendation letter will mention your ethical lapses. You're finished in chemistry. Professor Mitchell, Natasha stepped between us. That sounds remarkably like retaliation, which I'm sure the university would be very interested in investigating. He stormed off, but his threat lingered. He still had power, connections, influence. The official battle might be over, but the war continued. That evening, my family celebrated quietly. It wasn't the complete vindication I'd hoped for, but I'd survived. My academic career was intact, if bruised. You stood up to him, Dad said. said. That took courage. And now everyone knows what he is, Mom added, even if they won't admit it publicly. But as I lay in bed that night, I wondered if it was enough. Mitchell would continue teaching, continue diminishing students, continue taking credit for others' work until the Research Integrity Committee finished their investigation, if they ever did. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check your email. A friend. The same sign-off as before. My mysterious tracker. The email contained a single link to a chemistry forum. The thread was titled, "Time's Up for Professor Mitchell, a call for stories." The original post was anonymous but devastating. It laid out Mitchell's pattern of discrimination, the research similarities with Dr. Patel's work, and ended with a call to action. If Mitchell has harassed you, diminished you, stolen from you, now is the time to speak up, anonymously if needed. Let's show the administration this isn't isolated. Within hours, the responses poured in. Students from across 2 decades sharing their experiences. International students whose names were butchered and careers derailed. Graduate students whose research was appropriated. Young female scientists who were told to be less ethnic for their careers. The thread went viral in academic circles. Chemistry Twitter picked it up. Major science blogs started investigating. The story was becoming too big for the university to ignore. By morning, the university had released a statement. In light of new allegations, Professor Richard Mitchell has been placed on administrative leave pending a comprehensive investigation. I stared at the statement, feeling a mix of vindication and exhaustion. It wasn't over, might never truly be over, but Mitchell's days of freely harassing students were numbered. My phone rang. Dr. Amit Patel. "I saw the news," he said. "The journal has officially announced they're investigating Mitchell's 1998 papers. And Adya, I've decided to go public with my story. You've inspired me." After we hung up, I sat in my childhood bedroom, looking at the awards on my wall. Science fair ribbons, academic medals, all bearing my name, Adya Sharma. The name Mitchell tried to erase. There would be consequences. Mitchell's threats weren't empty. Some professors would side with him, some opportunities would close, but others would open. Dr. Simpson had already offered to supervise my undergraduate research. Dr. Kim wanted to mentor me. Dr. Patel invited me to visit his lab over summer. My phone buzzed with another text from my mysterious friend. "You did it. Sometimes the system needs a push from the outside. Keep fighting." A friend who understands. I never found out who'd been tracking me, warning me, supporting me from the shadows. Maybe another student Mitchell had wronged. Maybe a faculty member who couldn't speak openly. It didn't matter. They'd been part of the network that finally held him accountable. The next week, I returned to organic chemistry with Dr. Simpson. She called attendance, pronouncing every name carefully, respectfully. When she reached mine, she said it perfectly. "Adya Sharma." "Present," I replied, my voice strong. Around me, other students nodded approval. The story had spread, and while some still avoided me, others offered quiet support. The pre-meds who'd laughed at Mitchell's jokes now looked ashamed. After class, a student approached me. Chinese, soft-spoken, someone I'd never noticed before. "Thank you," she said simply. "He told me to go by Susan. Said Zueme was too difficult." I never corrected him. "But after what you did, I'm using my real name now. One student at a time. One name at a time." The culture was shifting. Mitchell's investigation dragged on for months. More evidence emerged. More stories surfaced. The Research Integrity Committee found significant problems with his early work. Several papers were retracted. His grant funding was suspended. The department quietly encouraged him to consider early retirement, but I was already moving forward. My research with Dr. Simpson was promising. Graduate programs were interested, especially after Dr. Patel and Dr. Kim wrote glowing recommendations. The warning on my record was a small price for the change I'd helped create. The day before graduation, I received a final email from Mitchell. No threats this time, just a single line. "I hope you're satisfied." I wasn't satisfied. One professor facing consequences didn't fix the system, but it was a start, a beginning, like my name. That evening, as my family prepared for graduation dinner, Mom pulled me aside. "I have something for you." She handed me a wrapped package. Inside was a nameplate for a desk. Dr. Adya Sharma, PhD. Below it, in smaller letters, first, beginning, unapologetically. "For your future office," she said, "when you're the professor who makes sure no student ever feels less than." I hugged her tightly, thinking of all the Juemes and Amits and Sarahs who'd been told their names were too difficult, their identities too much, thinking of the students who'd come after me, who'd walk into classrooms where their names were spoken with respect. Mitchell had tried to erase me, to simplify me, to make me palatable. Instead, he'd created an advocate, someone who understood that names matter, that identity matters, that speaking truth to power matters even when the system is stacked against you. As we drove to dinner, Dad asked, "Any regrets?" I thought about the stress, the investigation, the threats, the sleepless nights and anxiety attacks, the friends who'd distanced themselves and the professors who'd grown cold. "No," I said finally, "no regrets. Because my name is Adya." Mitchell trying to meet with board members in secret? That timing seems way too convenient after all the evidence started piling up against him. Makes me wonder what exactly he was trying to pull behind closed doors with those connections. It means first beginning, and this was just the beginning. The weekend after the board's decision, I spent hours organizing Dr. Akim's notebooks and cross-referencing them with Mitchell's publications. Each page revealed another instance of uncredited work, another stolen idea. The pattern was undeniable. Monday morning, I walked into Dr. Simpson's class to find several students waiting for me. They formed a small cluster near my usual seat, faces uncertain but determined. One of them, a sophomore named Priya, handed me a folder. Inside were screenshots of emails from Mitchell, grade reports showing sudden drops after students challenged him, and testimonies from international students who'd been too afraid to speak up before. The chemistry department was buzzing with tension. Faculty meetings ran longer, voices raised behind closed doors. I caught glimpses of Mitchell entering and leaving the administrative offices, his usual swagger replaced by something harder, more desperate. That afternoon, Benji found me in the library. He slid into the seat across from me, glancing around nervously before pulling out his laptop. He showed me an email thread between Mitchell and several journal editors. Mitchell was frantically trying to get ahead of the investigation, offering to clarify his early research, proposing retrospective citations to Dr. Patel's work. The desperation in his messages was palpable. 23 years of carefully constructed reputation crumbling in real real time. Dr. Patel called that evening with an update. 3 major journals had initiated formal reviews of Mitchell's papers. The chemistry community was taking notice, and not in the way Mitchell had always craved. Tuesday brought a new development. The department chair announced a town hall meeting for Thursday to address recent concerns about academic integrity and inclusive practices. The email was carefully worded, but everyone knew what it was really about. Mitchell responded by doubling down. He sent a department-wide email defending his record, claiming he was the victim of a coordinated smear campaign by radical elements trying to destroy traditional academic values. The email backfired spectacularly. Within hours, graduate students were sharing it on social media, highlighting the coded language, the barely veiled threats. The chemistry Twitter community had a field day dissecting every self-serving paragraph. Wednesday afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor. Dr. Chen appeared at my lab bench during my research hours with Dr. Simpson. She waited until the other students had moved away before speaking quietly. She explained that the Academic Integrity Board had received 17 new complaints about Mitchell in the past week. Former students, visiting researchers, even a few faculty members who'd witnessed his behavior but never felt empowered to report it. The scope was staggering. Mitchell's pattern of harassment and appropriation stretched back to his earliest days at the university. The board was overwhelmed, trying to process decades of suppressed grievances suddenly flooding in. That evening, Mom called with news. She'd been contacted by a reporter from the university newspaper. Word was spreading beyond academic Twitter, beyond chemistry blogs. The story was gaining momentum. I told her to decline the interview. This wasn't about fame or attention. It was about accountability, about creating change within the system that had protected Mitchell for so long. Thursday's town hall was standing room only. The chemistry building's largest lecture hall was packed with students, faculty, and staff. Mitchell sat in the front row, flanked by 2 older professors who'd been his allies for years. The department chair opened with carefully prepared remarks about the university's commitment to diversity and academic integrity. She announced new policies for investigating harassment claims, new protections for international students, new oversight for research attribution. When she opened the floor for comments, the dam burst. Student after student stood up, sharing their stories, not just about Mitchell, but about the culture that had enabled him, the silence that had protected him, the fear that had kept victims quiet. Mitchell tried to respond several times, but the department chair shut him down. This wasn't his forum anymore. His time for controlling the narrative had passed. Friday morning, I arrived at the chemistry building to find Mitchell's nameplate removed from his office door. A small thing, but symbolically massive. The institution was finally distancing itself from its problematic son. Natasha called with an update. The university had quietly offered Mitchell a deal: retire immediately with a minimal pension, or face the full investigation with all its potential consequences. Criminal charges were unlikely, but civil lawsuits from former students were already being discussed. The weekend brought more revelations. Someone leaked Mitchell's annual reviews from the past decade, showing a clear pattern of complaints about his treatment of international students. Complaints that had been noted but never acted upon, filed away, and forgotten. The chemistry department was in damage control mode. Emergency faculty meetings, revised policies, mandatory training sessions. The culture that had protected Mitchell was being dismantled piece by piece. Monday's classes felt different. Professors were more careful with names, more respectful in their interactions. The international students walked a little taller, spoke up a little more. The atmosphere was shifting. Dr. Simpson pulled me aside after class. She'd been appointed to a new committee on inclusive practices in STEM education. She wanted me to serve as the student representative, a chance to help shape policy, to ensure what happened to me wouldn't happen to others. That afternoon, I found Mitchell clearing out his office. He was alone, packing decades of academic life into cardboard boxes. He looked smaller somehow, diminished without his podium and power. He saw me watching from the doorway and straightened up, trying to summon his old authority. But it was gone. The fear he'd instilled, the deference he'd demanded, all evaporated. I helped carry one of his boxes to the elevator, not out of kindness, but because I wanted him to know I wasn't afraid anymore, that none of us were afraid anymore. The Research Integrity Committee released their preliminary findings that week. 3 of Mitchell's early papers would be retracted. 6 others would receive editorial notes about attribution concerns. His entire academic legacy was being asterisked. Dr. Patel flew in for a guest lecture the following week. The department invited him as part of their effort to rebuild trust and acknowledge past wrongs. His talk was standing room only, with Mitchell notably absent. Afterward, Dr. Patel and I had coffee. He talked about the years he'd spent watching Mitchell build a career on borrowed foundations, the anger he'd swallowed, the opportunities he'd lost because he hadn't fought back. He thanked me for doing what he couldn't, for being braver at 21 than he'd been at 30. But I told him the truth. I wasn't brave. I was just angry enough to not care about the consequences. The following month, the university announced Mitchell's retirement. A brief statement, carefully worded to avoid admission of wrongdoing while making it clear he wouldn't be returning. No farewell reception, no emeritus status, just gone. The chemistry department hired 2 new professors to replace him. Both were young, diverse, committed to inclusive education. The old guard was slowly being replaced by faculty who understood that excellence and respect weren't mutually exclusive. I continued my research with Dr. Simpson, diving deep into projects Mitchell would never have supported. My name appeared on conference presentations, journal submissions. Adya Sharma, spelled correctly every time. The formal warning on my record became a non-issue. Graduate programs were more interested in my research and recommendations than in a bureaucratic slap on the wrist. Several professors privately told me they admired what I'd done. Dr. Kim became an informal mentor, guiding me through the complexities of academic politics. She introduced me to her network of scientists who'd survived their own Mitchells, who'd built successful careers despite the obstacles. Spring semester brought a new challenge. Some of Mitchell's old allies tried to paint me as the villain who'd destroyed a good man's career. Whispered comments about cancel culture and mob justice followed me through the halls. But for every bitter comment, there were 10 supportive voices. Students who thanked me for speaking up, faculty who acknowledged the department's past failures, staff who'd watched Mitchell's behavior for years and finally felt vindicated. The university implemented new policies based on the committee's recommendations. anonymous reporting systems, regular climate surveys, mandatory bystander intervention training, real structural changes, not just cosmetic fixes. I testified before the faculty senate about my experience. 60 professors listening as I explained how a name could be weaponized, how small acts of dismissal accumulated into systematic exclusion. Some looked uncomfortable. Good. My parents attended the presentation, sitting in the back row. Dad's jaw clenched the way it always did when he was proud but trying not to show it. Mom took photos of every slide, even though I'd sent her the presentation file. The student newspaper ran a series on inclusive practices in STEM, featuring stories from students across departments. Mitchell's name was barely mentioned. He'd become a footnote in a larger conversation about institutional change. Summer research in Dr. Patel's lab was transformative, working with someone who pronounced every name correctly, who valued diverse perspectives, who cited sources meticulously. The way Adia helped carry Mitchell's box to the elevator is making my brain spin with questions. Why would she choose that exact moment to show she's not scared? This was what academic mentorship should look like. The chemistry department's fall orientation included a session on cultural sensitivity and inclusive language. First-year students learned from day one that their names mattered, that their identities were assets, not obstacles to overcome. Mitchell's former office was transformed into a study space for undergraduate researchers. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The space where he diminished students now empowered them. I ran into one of Mitchell's former teaching assistants at a conference. He apologized for not speaking up, for laughing at the jokes, for being complicit in the culture. I told him to do better with his own students. That was all any of us could do. The final journal retraction came through in October. Mitchell's most cited paper, the cornerstone of his early career, was formally withdrawn. Dr. Patel was listed as the primary researcher in the editorial note. Justice, decades delayed. My graduate school applications were stronger than I'd ever imagined. Research experience, publications, recommendations from professors who'd seen me stand up to power and create change. The warning on my record was irrelevant compared to that. Senior year flew by in a blur of research, applications, and committee work. The Inclusive Practices Committee became a model for other departments. Real change, implemented by people who understood the stakes. The department hosted a celebration for graduating seniors. My name was pronounced perfectly when they called me up for the Chemistry Achievement Award, the same award Mitchell had butchered 2 years earlier. As I accepted the certificate, I thought about all the students who'd come before me. The ones who'd been silenced, diminished, erased. The ones who'd changed their names to fit in, who'd accepted less than they deserved. Graduation day arrived with perfect spring weather. My extended family filled an entire row. Names like Priya and Arjun and Lakshmi called out proudly as they cheered. No one suggested they were too complicated. The chemistry department had a new chair, a woman who'd implemented sweeping changes. She personally congratulated each graduate, taking time to pronounce every name correctly. Such a small thing that meant everything. I started my PhD at a university known for its inclusive culture. My advisor introduced me to colleagues as Adia, never stumbling, never suggesting alternatives. This was what respect looked like. The first day of teaching my own lab section, I called attendance carefully. When I reached a student with a name I wasn't sure about, I asked them to pronounce it for me. Then I practiced until I got it right. One student stayed after class to thank me. She'd been told her whole life that her name was too difficult. No one had ever taken the time to learn it properly. I thought of Mitchell and felt not anger but pity. He'd missed so much by refusing to see us fully. My research flourished in an environment where my identity was celebrated, not diminished. Publications, presentations, collaborations with scientists around the world. The career Mitchell had tried to derail was thriving. The university where Mitchell had taught continued its transformation. New policies, new faculty, new culture. His shadow grew fainter with each passing semester. The system that had protected him was being steadily dismantled. I returned for a guest lecture 3 years later. The chemistry building looked the same, but everything else had changed. Students chatted in multiple languages, names from every corner of the world spoken without hesitation. After my talk, a young student approached me. She'd heard about what happened with Mitchell, how I'd fought back. She was dealing with her own problematic professor, unsure what to do. I gave her my email, told her she wasn't alone. That evening, I had dinner with Dr. Simpson, now a full professor and department chair. We talked about the changes, the work still to be done, the students coming up behind us who would push even further. Mitchell's name came up only once, when she mentioned they'd found more instances of questionable attribution in his work. He'd built an entire career on the backs of others, taking credit for ideas that weren't his. The investigations continued, his legacy unraveling thread by thread. But I realized I didn't care about Mitchell anymore. He'd been a catalyst, not a destination. What mattered was the change he'd unwittingly sparked, the voices he'd unwillingly amplified by trying to silence them. My name is Adia. It means first, beginning. Mitchell tried to erase it, to make me smaller, more palatable. Instead, he taught me that my name was worth fighting for, that all our names are worth fighting for. The academic world is vast and still flawed, but it's changing. Every properly pronounced name, every respected identity, every student who feels seen and valued, chips away at the old guard's foundations. Mitchell was just one brick in a wall that's slowly crumbling. I think about the students in my classes now, the ones with names some professors might find difficult. I make sure they know their names are beautiful, that their identities matter, that anyone who suggests otherwise is revealing their own limitations, not theirs. Sometimes I get emails from students at my old university. They tell me about professors who've changed, policies that protect them, a culture that's slowly shifting. They thank me for speaking up, but I remind them that change happened because we all spoke up. My voice was just one in a chorus that finally grew too loud to ignore. The chemistry community is small, and occasionally I hear updates about Mitchell, living quietly in retirement, his reputation in ruins, his legacy overturned. Some might feel sympathy. I feel only relief that he can't hurt any more students. But mostly, I don't think about him at all. I think about my research, my students, my future. I think about the young scientists coming up behind me who will never have to choose between their identities and their careers, who will walk into classrooms where their names are spoken with respect, where their contributions are valued, where they can be fully themselves. That's the real victory. Not Mitchell's downfall, but the rise of everyone he tried to diminish. We're still here. Names intact, voices strong, and we're not going anywhere. The beginning. Mitchell tried to end became a beginning he never imagined. One where Adia means exactly what my parents intended. First, beginning. The start of something new and better. A beginning where every name matters, every voice counts, and no one has the power to make us smaller than we are. Thanks for sticking with me through all the commentary. Seriously, your patience with my endless questions means a lot. Until our paths cross again. Like the video. It helps more than you think.